A lot of the Call of Duty franchise's recent entries have been letting me down. Cold War I found to be very uninspired, the multiplayer's SPMM was the most extreme we had ever seen, and majority of the maps were bad except for the remastered ones like Raid. Also, the Zombies mode failed to live up to the standards that they set back in Black Ops 3. As for Vanguard, I don't think I need to explain the problems with this game. There are already plenty of great videos online of why Vanguard is a bad game, so I'll link one in the description if you want to get further info. However, Modern Warfare 2 2022 surprised me a lot. I wasn't originally planning to buy this game at all, but my friends were playing it, so I just decided to get it. But the real question is, should you do the same? Is the game worth buying, or should you just skip out? Well, by the end of this video, you'll know the answer to that question. Let's go ahead and get into the review, starting off with the campaign. The first thing I want to say before I talk any further is that MW2's campaign is the best COD campaign we have gotten in at least the past 5 years, especially from a gameplay perspective. This game has some of the best set pieces and locations out of any COD game I've played in a while. For example, in the mission Violence and Timing, your helicopter gets hit by an enemy RPG. This causes you to go flying out of the helicopter, and the only thing keeping you from falling to your death is a rope attached to the heli. While hanging from the helicopter upside down, you get to kill enemies with your pistol while swerving between traffic. Also, later on in the mission, after you cut yourself from the helicopter, you get to jump between the vehicles and hijack them. While all of this is happening, you are leaning in and out of your vehicle, shooting at the enemy while driving. There are multiple other examples of sequences like this in the campaign. For example, the mission Darkwater. In this mission, you find yourself on a cargo ship where you must fight the enemy while cargo containers are moving across the deck of the ship. These kinds of sequences help to add a lot to the gameplay because at their core, a lot of Call of Duty missions just have you mindlessly shooting at an enemy faction. So you've got to admit, it's pretty badass to get to dangle from a helicopter while swerving between traffic. I think my favorite mission for gameplay though was Alone by far. This mission does something that I don't think Call of Duty has ever done before. It takes place in Mexico where you find yourself in enemy territory without a weapon. This mission takes a survival horror direction which I was not expecting from Call of Duty, but I do think it works here. You have to gather resources around to fashion makeshift tools and grenades that can aid you in your survival. You can also find firearms, but they typically have little ammo and you want to refrain from using them because they will alert the enemy of your location. Going through this dimly lit Mexican town while swerving in and out of buildings trying to avoid being spotted is so fun. To be honest, I'm surprised that the idea of being lost in hostile territory without a weapon hasn't been explored before in Call of Duty. The final mission Countdown tried to do a similar thing by removing your weapon and forcing you into crafting makeshift traps and weapons, but it definitely wasn't executed nearly as well. The reason why is Alone's atmosphere makes the mission hit so much harder. Your enemy is executing people in the towns all around you. Sometimes you're walking into buildings right after they've killed innocent bystanders, and it adds to the atmosphere so much. It shows you how dangerous the enemy is and that you can't afford to be caught. Now, there is one decision that I dislike when it comes to the gameplay in the campaign. This is the addition of armored enemies. These are Infinity Ward's way of adding variety to the enemies you face, and these guys are extremely beefy, especially on veteran difficulty. My main reason for hating these enemies is because MW2 has a very quick time to kill, which I like, but these enemies throw that all away. Also, they aren't even vulnerable to headshots. Their heads are still protected with armor, and in veteran difficulty, they can kill you in 2 shots or less. So try dealing with an enemy that can 2-shot you when you have to dump a clip of your AR to kill them. These enemies ruin the flow of a lot of missions and are extremely annoying to fight. Honestly, I would be much happier if they just removed them altogether. Now to talk about the story. If you don't want spoilers, I would recommend skipping to the multiplayer section of this video. There's a timestamp in the description if you want to do so. I'll give you 5 seconds before we begin. Okay, I'm assuming you're still watching this section of the video because you either A, don't plan on buying the game, or B, you have already played it. Anyways, let's get into the story, which is utter garbage in my opinion. Now, hear me out. I think the characters in this game are absolutely amazing and help to distract me and many others from the story's issues. The biggest issue being the Hassan plot hole. If you don't remember, in the mission Close Air, you are playing as Shadow Company, providing air support for Ghost, Soap, and Alejandro, while they are trying to capture Hassan. In this mission, you bomb the farm he is hiding out in. The group successfully captures him. Then, while protecting the transport of Hassan, they are ambushed. This forces Ghost, Soap, Alejandro, and Hassan to fall back to a restaurant. In this sequence, you bomb a gas station, school, and multiple other buildings in this small Mexican town, on top of killing multiple people. Now, why does this matter? Well, in a cutscene later on, this happens.
Now you can either become part of the food chain, or you can start talking.
I'm a hostage here. This is illegal.
You're a prisoner of war.
Iran is not at war with Mexico. I've broken no laws. These men and their commanders are the lawbreakers.
You and your beloved General Gorbani
Do not speak his name! You executed him and you will pay for your crimes.
I want this bastard in permanent custody or looking up at the goddamn grass.
General, killing Hassan is an act of war. Keeping him is illegal. Right now, he is too hot to hold.
Tell me you're getting something actionable as well.
Working on it. Stand by.
Actual, let me finish this.
There's nothing I would like more. But Laswell's right.
Without proof, we need to turn him loose, see where he leads us.
He's right here. You can't be serious.
I'm afraid I am, son.
Their logic here makes legitimately no sense. They just now realize they were risking war with Mexico after capturing Hassan, and they're just gonna let him go scot-free. If you were worried about starting a war with Mexico, then why would you bomb the Mexican countryside? Letting Hassan go wouldn't stop this war from occurring, especially now that they've already done that. This is one of the biggest plot holes I've seen in a Call of Duty campaign, and when I first saw this, it really took me out of the story entirely. I had a really hard time taking the story seriously after this because the game could have easily ended after this very mission, but instead they needed him alive so the plot could last another 10 missions. Another part of the mission that I thought made no sense was Graves and Shadow Company betraying you. I understand why they did it, but my issue is with the timing. Wouldn't it make more sense for them to wait until all the missiles were accounted for? Because Graves wants all the missiles destroyed just as badly as you do. The missiles are key evidence that could be used to prove him and Shepard were involved in them arriving in enemy hands. And having the help of Ghost, Soap, Alejandro, Captain Price, Gaz, and the others would be beneficial to him. It would make more sense to me if he waited to do this until after the third missile was destroyed. This kind of just feels like Infinity Ward trying to add another betrayal plot as a callback to the original MW2, but it just doesn't compare to it in the slightest. Also, notice how in this scene, not a single character dies. The entire cast of important characters are in this scene, and nothing really happens at all. Soap is wounded, and that's about it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm happy this happened because it led to one of my favorite missions in the franchise's history. But logically, this point makes no sense. The campaign is still really good despite its terrible story, simply for the fact that its gameplay and characters are so good. But if you're expecting a good, coherent story, you're looking in the wrong place. I think the campaign is worth playing because of its iconic moments and fun gameplay. But for the price of $70, I would wait until it goes on sale, especially if you're buying it just for the campaign. A 6 to 7 hour campaign just isn't worth it in my opinion. Okay, now to speak on the multiplayer. This is what I normally buy Call of Duties for. I've never been a huge campaign guy myself, but the multiplayers have always been the thing I'm interested in. First off, I just want to say the fast time to kill of Modern Warfare 2, I love in the multiplayer. I prefer faster time to kill in games in general. That is why I enjoy games like Rainbow Six and Ready or Not, and I think this game delivers that perfectly. Also, this game introduces a lot of major gameplay changes. The biggest one being the new perk system, which requires you to earn your perks over time. You get your base perks as soon as the match starts, but your bonus and ultimate perks must be earned throughout the match. This can be done through kills, assists, and earning objective points. This system can really suck, especially on bigger maps because it can sometimes take half the match to finally earn your ultimate perk. And considering the most overpowered perks like Quick Fix are ultimate perks, this hurts a lot. This is one of those changes that feels like it serves no purpose other than to just change things for the sake of doing so. Another change that was implemented was an entire rework to the progression system. This system is incredibly confusing. To unlock some weapons, you have to level up other ones. Like for example, to unlock the Icarus LMG, you must level up the M4. And to unlock the M16, you must level up the Icarus LMG. Also, to get specific attachments, you also have to level other guns. For example, if you want to use the canted laser sight on the M4, you have to unlock the Scar first and then level it up. This is incredibly confusing, even for me, who has put over 50 hours in the game at this point. I think a more traditional leveling system would have worked much better in this game, and the more I have to deal with this new system, the more I hate it. Now, the final change, which I actually really like, is you now have the ability to choose between score streaks or kill streaks. So if you prefer playing the objective, you now have the option to turn on score streaks. Giving players that option is a good decision. The score streaks versus kill streaks debate has always been a big one in the community, and so I'm happy to see that they're giving players that option. Also, a huge complaint from 2022's predecessor, 2019, was that its maps rewarded camping and made it extremely easy to do. I will say in this game, there is no real issue with that at all. Now, this doesn't mean that every map in Modern Warfare 2 is good. Out of the 11 maps in the game, I dislike Hotel, Embassy, Border Crossing, and Fortress, with Border Crossing being one of the worst maps in the franchise, in my opinion. The problem with this map specifically is that it is a 2-lane map. One lane being the street that is filled with cars that will explode when an explosive detonates on them, and the other is a long walkway that snipers can just sit on one side of and wait. It is by far the most infuriating map I've played in a while, and if you've played it, I'm sure you'll agree. Now, from what you've seen thus far, it may seem like I dislike MW2's multiplayer, especially since I've mentioned more negatives than positives, but I actually really enjoy it. It is the only COD game I've enjoyed since Black Ops 3. I'm happy they went with a much faster time to kill, and the removal of slide canceling, even though I was skeptical at first, I think benefits this game's gameplay massively. I'm happy with the direction they went with this game's multiplayer, and I don't really have much to complain about here. The SBMM in this game, while present, isn't nearly as bad as Cold War. Also, snipers actually deal damage in this game and are surprisingly usable. Now, what is my overall review? Should you buy MW2 2022? Well, I'd say if you're thinking of purchasing this game to play both the multiplayer and the campaign, then I would recommend it. I'm sure you'll get tons of enjoyment out of it. Me personally, I bought it and played both the multiplayer and the campaign, and I've had a ton of fun. However, if you're one of the players of Call of Duty that buys it just for its campaign alone and nothing else, then I think you should wait for it to go on sale. The story is really bad, and while I think the gameplay and characters make up for it, as I said earlier in the video, I think a 7-hour campaign is just not worth the amount of money this game costs. You have to keep in mind Modern Warfare 2 is a $70 game, so 7 hours of gameplay just isn't worth that price tag. I hope that this video has helped you decide whether or not to get Modern Warfare 2. If you enjoyed today's video or got something out of it, I would appreciate it if you would consider subscribing. I'm trying to hit 3K subs by the end of the year, and it's getting really close. So if you want to help me out, it would mean a lot. Now, if I haven't earned your sub yet, that is totally fine. You can go and watch this video, and hopefully it will change your mind. Anyways, I'll see you next time, friends, and peace.